We want to build the Nike of sports recovery.
Lottie Whyte, Entrepreneur of the Year, founder of a sports recovery brand, MyoMaster.
We literally went and sold a B&Q drip. I meet women with these sick business ideas and give themselves 50,000 excuses why they shouldn't launch. Just start. I use my maternity leave from my job to really start scaling
That's good
the
timing.
business. Yeah. If I had one piece of advice for anyone thinking about starting a business, it would be...
I'm excited to have on today's episode Lottie Whyte. She was the youngest person on the strategic board of M&C Saatchi in Hanbury. She started a fitness and wellness brand, but it's aimed at recovery. It's called MyoMaster, so I'm really interested to see what she's done with that. But she was also NatWest Entrepreneur of the Year. So really exciting to have her on. I think we're going to find this very useful, but welcome.
Thanks for having me.
No, it's
excited
great
to be here.
Yeah, I know. I was just saying, we've been talking a bit before we've even got on here about a few different things that we'll come on to. But tell me a bit about your journey. Where did your entrepreneurial journey start? It looks like you started a bit in the corporate world. I'm going to open one of these, if you don't mind.
I might join you shortly.
Been waiting for this.
My journey started, to be honest, when I was very young. Like, my grandparents had their own business that I worked in from like being 3 or 4 years old.
Yeah.
Then my parents took it over, and so I was in entrepreneurial environments from day one. And then I left university and went into the corporate world, and I was determined that I wasn't going to be an entrepreneur after having spent growing up
all that experience.
100%. I was like, it's not for me. I want safety, security, all of that stuff.
You've seen all the stressful bits then.
Yeah, I'd seen, under the hood, not the glamorous bit, the reality of running a business. And I was like, nah, I'm not about that life. I'll take the salary and the holiday and all the good bits. And then I worked in the corporate world, and I had this determination that I was going to be on the board of an advertising or PR agency before I was 30. And so the minute I kind of got into the corporate world, I was like, that's my focus. And I think I had that dream, and I made that happen when I was 27 and joined the board of M&C Saatchi PR, and that was nothing like I had hoped it would be.
No, I can imagine.
So I think then that's when I kind of started really thinking about, could I do something for myself? Because maybe actually I don't want to thrive in somebody else's environment, but I want to create something for myself. So that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting that you was in that entrepreneurial space and then you went corporate, because the thing, like you said, freedom for entrepreneurs is probably a large reason why we do this.
Yeah.
But what sort of made you push into that career path? Because it's probably quite difficult to move into. I mean, I look at corporates now and I'm like, I couldn't do it.
Do you know
what I mean?
I think definitely for me, like, my parents had really struggled with the highs and lows of business, and their business was catering. So they had a big like Victorian tea rooms in Kent, and it was really challenging. They worked every single day of the week. There were constantly people letting them down from a staff perspective. Everything that could go wrong would go wrong. We were always there, and they were trying to juggle family life and financially, in the end, they had to close it down, and it failed. And so I think that kind of maybe left a scar or two. Yeah. And when I got into the corporate world and I saw that, you could take home a regular salary and have financial security, I think that was the biggest driver for me, after having watched my parents struggle financially as a result of being entrepreneurs and taking those risks. But then as I spent more time in the corporate world, and as I got older as well, I realised that I was sort of having to conform to other people's cultures, and it was kind of exhausting after a while. Especially being a black female, the reality for me was that, like, I didn't belong in a lot of the environments that I was in from a corporate perspective, and I didn't feel comfortable a lot of the time. And I thought, actually, I got to a point when I sort of got to near 30 that I just thought, life's too short to be spending your life living in cultures and environments that don't make you feel comfortable, or you feel that you can't quite be yourself. So that's probably the biggest driving factor for me.
Yeah, no. And what gave you that confidence? Because like you said, female founders especially, there's not so many, but there's more and more now, which is great to see. But what gave you that push of confidence? I guess your family being entrepreneurs, they would have been confident enough to say, we'll just go and try it. But what really took you over the edge to leave the 9 to 5?
To be honest, I probably played it quite safe, and I did what I recommend to every other entrepreneur to do. I started it as a side hustle. So MyoMaster started evenings and weekends around my corporate job. I was still taking my salary and had the comfort of that. And then I was working every spare minute on building the business. And I only quit my job when we'd hit a threshold of making a certain amount of money. And I could see that we had product market fit, there was real consumer interest in the brand. And so it wasn't a complete leap of faith. Like, we'd built momentum. We'd seen that people wanted to buy our products, that there was a real gap in the market for this brand. And then there was more than that. There was like customer love for it and advocacy for it. And so then I felt comfortable to take the risk.
It's an interesting way to start. And I think I went the other way. I didn't have any corporate background or any almost job, I'd say, before that. And I think that's probably led to a few issues we've had internally with culture and just the way I do things. I haven't had management structures before. So how did you find that corporate structure for you? S&C, actually, that's a PR company. What was your role there in terms of what did you learn from that corporate world?
All of my years I've worked in ad and PR agencies. That was my background. And I did a bit of everything. I was head of people, so looking after culture and all of the things that you just talked about. And
all the bits I missed.
Yeah. How do you create cultures that enable people to thrive and that align with the business goals and what you're trying to achieve? I was also often responsible for new business. That was a big part of my role. So sales experience, really helpful. And at my first job, where I stayed for 7 years at a big comms agency called Instinctive Partners, I was essentially kind of the right-hand woman to the CEO, and he really kindly, a guy called Richard Nichols, took me under his wing and showed me under the bonnet of how do you build a business. And when I started there, I think they were sort of 40 people, and by the time I left, we were like 250 people in 14 countries doing like 40 million plus of turnover. And I really went on that journey with him. And so I had it all be in a completely different space. I had that experience of like, what does it look like when you're growing and scaling a business?
Yeah.
And I learned loads operationally, financially, in terms of people, sales, like so many skills that have really helped me when I'm building MyoMaster, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's key. And I think that's partly why I wanted to do Fuel for Founders, because I think you've probably been the same, like you just said, your network is so important.
100%.
And I've just found the more I'm getting into business, the more you realise, the more people you network with and you get involved. I was at dinner last night. You just learn so much, things you can't learn from textbooks or anything else, really.
100%. I think that's such a good point. If I had one piece of advice for anyone thinking about starting a business, it would be like relationships. Almost everything amazing that's happening in my business now is as a result of relationships that I've built.
Yeah.
Like, really is. Whether that be with, taking the time to really invest in customer relationships or really networking with founder relationships. I mean, Andrew, who introduced us, is a really great example of someone. He's helping us out now.
Exactly, yeah.
Connecting us
he
with
connected
other
us
people.
together.
He connected us.
Yeah.
That's why we're having this conversation. We just launched a big partnership with On, one of the biggest sports brands in the world right now. It came off the back of a relationship I built with someone who's now gone to work there. Like, it's just so, it's so powerful, I think, when you're starting out, to invest your time in building relationships with people who are further ahead than you, because so many opportunities will come as a result of that.
What would your advice be for people to take the step forward? Because I know it's not necessarily shy, but sometimes it's hard to put yourself in those environments. I went to a pub networking night, sat with a guy, been on the podcast, Jason. Turns out he founded Blue e-cigs and sold it for a lot of money, which for me is great because it's in my FMCG world. It's garages and forecourts and supermarkets. So I'm like, why did you do that? How did you do this? And I've learned so much from him. But that was just because I went to this meeting. But it's so easy not to go. What would your advice be to people? You've obviously got confidence to go out there and do it, but how do you do it? You just put your big girl pants on and go for it? Or?
A bit of that. Definitely, I would say you can start by not even going to those kind of big events. But I think you'd be surprised how many people, when you reach out and ask for help, are willing to help you. Like, Andrew's a perfect example. I've asked him for help with X, Y, and Z after the first time I met him. And I was like, would you mind? I'm trying to do this. I know you're really experienced. Also, everybody's got an ego, right? So, like, I often find when you're asking people for help, like, they're flattered, right? Like, they want to share their expertise.
Of course, yeah.
So, I would even, if you don't want to go to the big events and you're not quite confident on a face-to-face level, like, reach out to people on LinkedIn and say, like, I'm so impressed by what you've built. I'm launching, I'm doing this for the first time. Would you have 20 minutes for a Zoom, or can I buy you coffee so I can pick your brains? Like, I think you'd be surprised how many people would say yes.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I like, you're right. It scratches their ego a bit. They like to help people. And it's nice to they probably like networking with younger people as well, giving on their wisdom that they've learned.
Totally, yeah.
So MyoMaster then, where's this idea come from? Because it's not that old, 2 years.
Yeah.
quite impressive growth.
Yeah.
A multitude of products, but you'll tell me the initial one I've seen obviously is the
percussive massage.
The custom massage, which I actually had to buy one racing once because my back was gone racing. I was like,
I bought you one in the car.
Oh no, you haven't.
Yeah.
Amazing. No,
Treats.
I'll try that. And it actually fixed my back and I got in the car and I carried racing. So I've seen these products.
You can say that again a little bit louder if you want.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can clip that. And even the gym nearby now, they've got some of your products in where you can put your legs in and it compresses them. But where did this idea come from? You're obviously into fitness, but
yeah, I'm big into fitness and training, and I'm married to a professional athlete. Full disclosure. So I married a rugby player, and he was getting injured all the time. Played hooker, like basically wasn't a season where he didn't have a major injury, and I was very much not a professional athlete, but really passionate about sport and an everyday athlete, running marathons, playing hockey, etc. And he actually had torn his Achilles. He was at home, not playing at Harlequins where he was at the time. He was trying to find something to speed up his injury and recover quicker. He literally put a stool end on the end of a B&Q drill.
Oh,
Crazy.
God.
Yeah, right, exactly.
How did that end?
He starts using it on his Achilles and on his calf, and he's like, "Oh my God, this is feeling amazing!"
Right.
So I know.
Made his own massage.
This is I was.
I like this.
I was making the same face as you, right? I was like, for Christ's sake, you just get on with sorting the kitchen, which is what he was supposed to do. And he takes it into Harlequins changing room. Bear in mind, professional club. Like sports masseuses,
he's there with his drill and his
nutritionists, and he's there with this B&Q drill with a stool end on. Like the boys are ripping him, like completely taking the piss out of him.
Especially in the rugby games.
And it's so loud, you can hear it down the corridor, like ridiculous. So he's using it on himself in the change room. Everyone's crying with laughter, like, what have you turned up with that for? He leaves the change room and leaves it in the change room. He comes back half an hour later and all he can hear as he's walking down the corridor is this drill. And he walks into the room and everyone's like, oh my God, Grazer, that's what they call him. Oh my God, Grazer, this thing is unreal. Can I buy it? I want one. Yeah. So Carl Sinclair, who's an England international rugby player, pulls 300 quid out of his wallet and is like, I'm taking it home. Like no one else is having it.
I'm taking the drill home.
For my back. Yeah. So he takes it home. Joe goes back to B&Q, buys 10 more drills, makes them up, sells them to the Harlequins lot. Those lot go to England camp. The England boys start asking, can they have one?
Yeah.
And this was like 4 years ago. So it was pre sort of massage guns being a thing.
Yeah.
And that was the kind of initial genesis. So I start using it. I just run a marathon and I had plantar fasciitis in my foot. So I start using it on my foot and I'm like, this is great, but like, you know, this drill don't make a business, basically. Like, and he kind of is like the crazy inventor, and I'm like the person who's actually got
thinking, what could you do with this?
I'm okay, what does this really look
Can't
like?
send B&Q drills to people.
Exactly. Although we did a lot at the beginning.
Yeah.
And so we started to really brainstorm, like, what is this really about? Like, what is the problem that this is really solving? Which is that, you know, a lot of people, something like 78% of people who run get injured every year. I mean, like, that's insane.
Yeah, that is high.
And everybody who I meet all of the time who are into training, they've always got some kind of niggle. Like, oh, I'm suffering of ITB syndrome. Oh, my knee's playing up on my lower back. You know, we live quite sedentary lifestyles.
Yeah.
People go out, train hard, increasingly hard.
Yeah.
And don't do anything to look after their bodies. They just expect their body to keep up with this kind of crazy training regime.
Yeah.
And so it just became more obvious as the more we thought about it that, like, people were really lacking the knowledge, expertise and tools to help them recover their body when they're training. You know, I was doing it. I was going out running marathons, training hard, just coming back home and hoping my body would keep up.
Yeah.
And so the vision for the business was really like, how do we build a recovery brand that makes recovery sexy, that makes you want to do it in the same way you want to go out and do your training, and that educates people about how to do it and then gives them the tools to take care of themselves. And that's what MyoMaster is. So we want to build the Nike of sports recovery. We want to build the biggest recovery brand in the world. And people will probably laugh at that, but we're doing it. We're building it. It's going to happen. And we've got huge ambitions to create a brand that's inspiring and that solves that problem, which is that a huge number of people who are training are walking around with bodies that are suffering as a result. And it's holding back their performance. They're getting injured. It's stopping them from training. And that's the problem that we want to solve.
No, I love the confidence you went into that with. Though, saying you want to be the Nike of
What's
sort
the
of
point
rehab.
if you don't want to go big? Do you know what I mean?
I think you've got to have a vision when you start these things, because without a vision, what path are you on?
Exactly.
But what was the timing of all this thing? Because obviously 4 years ago you're playing with these DIY drills. As you said, the sports recovery space is changing. It's gone from just stretch your hamstrings and hope for the best to there's products coming out, different products. How did you start sourcing products, taking that drill concept and finding something that matched what you wanted to do? How did that process work for you?
So the first step 4 years ago was, okay, we can sell this to elite athletes who A, have money, and B, are really passionate about solving this problem because it's their job.
Yeah, it's their career.
Is this a mass market product? So we literally spent like $2,000, which at the time felt like a lot of money, to go to a cycle show at the XL. We turned up with our drills and we were like, this is a joke because, who's going to buy this? Before you know it, on day one, there's like 50 people around the stand because it's a drill and people are like talking about it. And we sold out of everything that we had that weekend. And we continued to kind of go to like a few events on our weekends. And then we really started researching like, okay, how do we build a brand around this? How do we...
And this is a proper drill now, not a DIY one.
Yeah, exactly. And how do we... what does our product range look like? How do we start educating people? What's the real vision for this? All of these kind of things. And we probably spent like a year and a half doing that. Joe was playing elite level rugby. That's a big job. Was trying to win championships. I was on had my first board role and was working all the hours in the city. So we probably didn't move as quickly as we could have if we didn't have those things going on. But I think we were both kind of immersed in doing those things and wanted to prove that we really had something before either of us took the leap. And then we did launch a website about 3 years ago. And at the same time, maybe 3 weeks after we launched the website, I found out I was pregnant. And so I was like, oh God, this is, and at the time we were pretty much selling everything like at events, and I was carrying all the boxes I was like up on stalls and
I've been there, those events are chaos. Carrying your little stand.
Exactly, and I was like, well, we've kind of done it now, so we're just going to keep going. Yeah. We kept side hustling, set up the website. We actually got some really super early interest from elite clubs. We started working with Leicester City and Manchester United, and word kind of spread amongst physios, but it was still very much a side hustle. Had the baby, little Otis, raised a round of investment. Raised a round of investment 6 weeks after he was born, our first round, because I was like, let's start scaling.
Because I guess at the minute you're buying the products in, obviously branded for your brand.
Yep. So we found a manufacturer to create the product. Yeah. The principal product being the massage guns.
Yes.
And we also launched an EMS product alongside that.
What does EMS mean?
It's electronic muscle simulation. So you might have seen them there.
I've
like
had
the
one
little
of those
pads
for my PT, and it warms you up a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah. We kind of launched with two products, found a manufacturer to create the products for us. Yeah. Had created a brand. Started importing and selling those. We weren't really selling anything on our website because the honest truth is I don't think we really knew how to drive traffic to it.
But I guess any traffic was coming through your network and your husband's friends, I guess,
exactly,
at that point.
Super low. Like
athletes, in essence.
If we made like 800 quid a month on the website, it was a win.
Yeah.
And then I had the baby, raised a little bit of money from a couple of angel investors.
And what was this money for? This was to finance purchasing more stock, or?
Mainly, yes. So the thing with a hardware business, different to maybe launching, a clothing brand, is that minimum order quantities are high. We were developing our own product. So the initial investment was big if you wanted to scale that up. Yeah. I think, I've got friends who've launched clothing brands, and very difficult because it's very competitive. But in terms of like the initial entry, the margins are really high, and you can make a minimum order quantity of like 100 units, and it can cost you like $2,000 or $3,000.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas for us, like minimum order quantities were big. We had to spend like 30 or 40 grand to even get.
And it's like looking in the barrel of a gun, isn't it? At that point,
100%.
We had it with the drinks. MOQs for cans is like 500,000 cans. Bear in mind, you got no distribution. You're
right,
like,
exactly.
What am I going to do with 500,000 cans? It's like, yeah. I can imagine the same for you, especially the cost. Obviously, a can doesn't cost a lot of money, but I assume even the base cost of a gun is quite high. So.
It is quite high. So yeah, initial outlays of 30, 40 grand, very frightening.
Yeah.
And because we had spent a little bit of time sort of just side hustling it, establishing product market fit, all of that stuff, we were like, let's raise some money and give it a go. And I think we were able to raise the money because we had a like even very small amount of revenue, but we'd proven that somebody wanted to buy it. We weren't pre-revenue. So we raised that money. And then I used my maternity leave from my job to really start scaling the business. Yeah, I know.
Not planned at all, but...
use my maternity leave to like really start thinking about how we're going to scale this from a D2C point of view.
Yeah.
Because it had just been events really that we'd done.
Yeah, of course.
And that all went away because just after we raised the money, COVID happened. So any revenue that we had, gone. Like there were no events to go to, forget about that. So we had to figure out how to start selling this product.
Almost a kickstart to do that,
exactly.
D2C, I guess.
Yeah. So at home, newborn baby, just raise the money, go into COVID, and start figuring out how to sell it online. Start working with some influencers, start doing paid ads, all of these things, just literally figuring it out as we went along.
That you see other brands doing, isn't it? You're like, seems
exactly.
to work.
Following the journey, listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos, like how are other people driving traffic to
their websites,
their websites, and started to take off. Like people were all training. One of the things people were doing during lockdown was keeping fit.
Yeah, and going online and buying stuff.
So that started to really happen for us and started to take off. And we were learning, iterating, taking data, etc. And so we scaled significantly in the first year of COVID. During the middle of that, I had to go back to work because I'd taken maternity pay.
Right, okay.
I had to return.
Yeah.
So I returned to work, juggling this website on the side. My mum moved in with us. She'd pack all the orders at night.
Oh, so you were at home packing and...
Yeah. We didn't have like a factory.
You didn't go to fulfillment centres or anything that early?
No, I didn't. You know, I just didn't know. I didn't know what I didn't even know. So
I mean, we've been there packing drinks. So we've been there.
Exactly. Looking back on it, I'm like, it was all part of the fun. But actually, I had another job. It was COVID. I had a newborn baby, and this business was scaling.
It was crazy amount of chaos going on. Yeah.
And so and then we did that for about another 6 months. I went back to work, and then at the start of 2021, I quit my job and went fully in on the business. Raised another round of investment.
And how did the experience come for that? The raising investment, early doors like that, it's not the easiest to raise investment. How did you know what to package up, what to sell? What were you giving them in essence at that early days? Or did you have some experience from your previous?
I had no experience.
No experience.
Zero. And not only is it challenging when you're telling people you want to raise money with a newborn baby, because that doesn't tend to go down that well. But also, I think it's like 0.2% of black women raise funding.
Yeah.
It's like ridiculously small.
Yeah.
It's small for women. It's even smaller for black women.
And probably even smaller for people who've just had babies.
I don't even know what the stats are if you've just had a baby.
It's probably tiny because they're like, you should prioritise that.
It's not looking good.
No.
The odds are not in your favour. No,
100%.
Just sold the dream.
Yeah.
And sold me.
And the vision, I guess.
And sold the vision and sold, Joe as well, my co-founder, sold the two of us and sold what we wanted to do. And I think when you're looking for angel investment and you're really early in the journey, people buy people. I firmly believe that. Like, I think everybody knows there's going to be some pivots in there. You definitely don't have it all figured out. I went in there telling them that I was going to make £1 million in our first proper year of business.
Just a bit like that.
Yeah. I was like, no, I'm going to make £1 million. Like, how hard can it be to make £1 million? Turns out it's hard.
It's 800 quid in a month.
Yeah, exactly. And now, like, some of those investors have like come on follow-on rounds. They're super supportive of what we're doing.
Amazing.
And they literally remind me all the time, like, do you remember when you sat in that restaurant and told us you were going to make £1 million in the next 12 months? And I was like, yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I had no idea.
They believed it.
Yeah, exactly. I think they didn't believe it, but I think they were like, if she's gunning for it, she'll probably do something
It's
cool.
probably better to have that confidence than not as well. Exactly, yeah.
So, I think just sold ourselves and sold our dream, really, to be honest.
So it's the end of the 2021. It's all gearing up. You're leaving your job. what's going through your head at that point? Because obviously you're entering the mode of risk. The industry, I think, was probably getting more competitive because I started to notice more and more people noticing this space is an area it's going to go. How did you guys try and compete? How did you find your customers? What's your why? And how did you start to acquire data and customers, I guess? Was it flat out Facebook, flat out influencers? What was your strategy?
Our strategy was definitely to focus on a certain customer. So we weren't trying to be everything to everyone. And that's still very much true to this day. I think the danger sometimes is with new brands, like you get excited by the pool of opportunity, but you have to kind of be Marmite, and like you have to decide who is my customer, who's my target audience. And I think create a brand that speaks to them, because it's impossible to create a brand that speaks to everybody. It's just not realistic. So our brand was really about looking at kind of 30 to 55-year-olds who are training quite hard more than 3 times a week, and they typically have a goal. So our customers tend to be marathon runners, people training for an Ironman, people really committed to CrossFit and, you know, entering CrossFit competitions. They're like passionate athletes.
Fitness enthusiasts.
They're not doing 0 to 5K typically. That's not our customer.
Yeah.
And those people are driven, they're focused, you know, they have goals and they're gunning to achieve them. And so it allowed us to create, to know where they are.
Yeah, of course.
Create the right partnerships, and speak to them in the right way. And we are those people. So Joe's a pro athlete. He's full of that.
Yeah.
And I am that person. I'm training for an Ironman this year. So we are our customers. And so we understand them. And I think that focus, that kind of relentless focus, and don't get me wrong, there have been moments where we've been tempted to, you know, or got excited by another opportunity. Or you see that maybe these type of people are buying it as well, and you go, oh, let's go after that audience. But pulling ourselves back in and focusing on that kind of committed fitness customer has been key for us. Yeah.
No, I think I've learned a lot from these episodes in terms of how important it is to dial in on those customers. And we've strayed away sometimes. We've gone heavy, you know, fitness. Then we was like, oh, let's go to gaming because the product works for gaming. But then we realized we're not gamers,
right.
And it's the wrong industry. And you can fall foul of that sometimes. So to have that vision is quite important.
Totally. I think it's probably like maybe my biggest learning.
Yeah.
And especially when you're small, like just because you're targeting a customer now, it doesn't mean that you can't target other audiences later. It just means it's giving you a real opportunity to penetrate. I mean, if you think about the brands you buy and I think about the brands I buy, like I buy brands that speak to me as an individual, and I'm sure you do the same. Like they resonate with you because you're into X, Y, and Z, and the people that represent them are you know, people that you're inspired by or whatever. So that kind of relentless focus on audience has been really key for us.
And how have you spoke to your audience authentically? Because I think authenticity with brands now is becoming more and more important. We were talking about it before we came in here. What is your guys' route to authenticity? 'Cause like you said, your customers are educated, they're passionate, they can see if you're making stuff up, and you're trying to sell a product on education and its benefits, really. So how did you navigate that road? I guess it helps your husbands and athletes talk about it.
100% that helps. Like that authenticity, as somebody who's played elite level sport for 15 years, is something you can't buy, to be honest. And then we've really committed to a lot of face-to-face community building. I mean, in March, we're at like 2 events every single weekend.
Oh,
like,
really?
We're
Wow.
out all the time. And it feels sometimes like, you know, maybe not a smart move, because obviously you can reach a lot more people online than you can face to face. But what we found is the ability to have authentic conversations with people who then go and tell other people in their community. Fitness is hugely community led, right? So
Yes.
If you're into cycling, you're in a cycling club, you buy this product, you go tell all your mates about this product that's helping solve this problem. That kind of customer advocacy is huge. And for us, like, we're relentless about going out. Like I'm out every single weekend this month at events still. And the ability to stand there in front of someone and tell them this story that I'm telling you has been really powerful.
It's an interesting way. And I think D2C brands especially can fall foul and not getting out enough. We've done it. I know we're in the market on shelves, but we do go D2C. And it's so easy to look at numbers online and not get out and go to events.
Yeah.
How did you position that as your main focus? What was the idea behind that? Because you could have chased numbers online, done more Facebook ads, more influencers.
Yeah.
to put time to go to events. It takes up your time, your resources. Like, so you've got to carry all your stuff everywhere.
Yeah. And it's not glam.
No, it's not
and
easy.
It's
It's raining one day.
And it's exhausting. And yeah, like it's taking up all your weekends and all of that. But what we see often is that like our online sales take a massive boost when we have, when we've been out a lot more. And we've kind of finally got to a place where we're sort of figuring out, you know, what our online marketing looks like. For me, like the whole thing's a massive ecosystem. Like you're out putting the product in hands. So our goal for this year is to put the product in 100,000 people's hands physically, partly because you need to feel often our product to believe it.
Of course, yeah.
And secondly, because customer advocacy is so massive for us. So even though we might only sell to that one person at that event, they will go and they will tell 30 more people about it. And those 30 more people will tell 30 more people each about it. And the fact that they've had an initial conversation with us or a real touch point with the founders, like in a world of online shopping, like how amazing that you went and you bought a product from a founder themselves and you can't put a price on that.
Yeah.
And then that person going, oh my God, and he was and he was a rugby player and then she went and started this business and then it's a really cool story. And I think it also really builds lifetime value, right? Because they're investing in you. Like they're not just buying a product, like they're investing in the story, and people just love that. They love to get behind brands that are more than just an online transaction.
Yeah, I think it's changed now, isn't it? So the days of, you know, you got your Mars Corps and all this, they're just faceless entities moving through the world.
Yeah.
And I do think now faces for brands are becoming more important. You see a lot of influencers starting brands. Obviously, that's a big trend now.
Yeah.
Even the drink space is becoming quite trendy. But, you know, it's definitely a world I think is going to move forward. And how hard is it for you to balance, you know, being face of the brand, but also running the brand behind the scenes? You have to make tough decisions. Do you find it difficult to juggle those hats as a founder? Is it still just two of you, or is the team a bit bigger now?
Team's a bit bigger now.
Yeah.
But I grew it quite rapidly, the team, last year. And that was a mistake, basically. I think when you get investment, it's tempting to be like, okay, let's scale, go. And you feel also like, you do, don't you? You're like, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go hire people and we're going to be massive. And also there's this weird thing, I don't know if you find this, where like people define success of startups. Like often the first questions you get asked is like, okay, how much money have you raised and how many people in your team?
Yeah.
As if they're like defining metrics of success.
Yeah, of course.
Which is really stupid, because actually is much more impressive to do more with less people, makes you more profitable.
Yeah.
But you know, telling people that you have 30 people in your team is somehow like a really impressive metric, which I've never quite understood. But I obviously bought into it because I scaled the team quite a lot last year. And I figured out really quickly that like, you know, you can run a business two ways. You can either run it that you raise money and you keep raising money and you burn cash, which has been a fashionable model in the last few years. Or you can try and get to profitability as quickly as possible, and then you have the ability to determine your own path and your own future and make your own choices. And so I tried the let's raise money, let's scale really quickly, let's move money. And I realized that on a personal level, like, not for me.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a massive VC-backed, huge, scalable,
with hundreds and
cash.
hundreds of employees.
I want to build something that's sustainable and profitable and authentic, and we get to lead it with integrity, with like not people telling us they want their return in 3 years. So hurry up and
hire more people.
Just didn't. I needed to do the experiment to understand what my.
But that's your values
was.
Again coming through, really, isn't it? The values of the business. So.
Yeah.
And what was the mistakes with the people? You've got a team. Was it just difficult to manage and get the team to all move forward in the same direction, or what did you struggle on? And we've done similar with Xlopes pre-COVID. We built a team, more salespeople, more vans, more admin, more everything, similar advice. And then COVID for us was a reset period where we could sit back and go, actually, do we need all these people? What value are they adding to the business? Could we do this with half the amount of people? Turns out we could, because we still are.
Yeah.
But similar story to you, really. But what was it for you that made you realise this is the wrong move? And it's difficult then to unwind yourself out of those positions. But how did you do that?
Two things. Firstly, I realised that I was hiring people that maybe had the right experience, but I think when you're working in a really early stage startup, it takes a certain type of person. So it's not necessarily about experience, but grit, relentless spirit, work ethic, the ability to get your hands dirty and get stuck into any task and come together and knuckle down. I didn't hire for those qualities first, which I always will do now, especially while we're still in this early stage. Mm-hmm. For me, like, it's a bit of a cliche, but like that attitude and spirit and like willingness to like, you know what it's like. It's like proper hard work and it's grit, and it needs that from everyone in the team, I think, when you're small. And if you have a couple of people, even if they're super experienced, but they're turning around like, look, don't talk to me about working weekends because I might get, some hate for hustle culture or whatever, but like that's just the reality. If you're joining the team, you've got to be up for this mission, you've got to be excited about building it, and you've got to be prepared to go the extra mile. Yeah. And I probably hired some people that probably better suited for bigger businesses, where they didn't need to commit in the same way. And so that was a big learning, was hire on kind of personality traits and what does the business need and what does our culture need. That's who we are as a people and culture. Yeah. And then secondly, like, I think if you hire without a really clear idea of, is that person going to deliver a result when you're, small, and what's the really clear output of what they're going to bring to the table, that's probably a mistake I made. Like, I thought we needed these people in marketing and I thought we needed these people in sales, but actually this year we've got such a super clear strategy that I can bring people to the table that are going to execute exactly on what we need. Yeah,
and keep more focused on that in essence, isn't it? Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you've experienced this, right? It's like, again, getting excited by different channels or different opportunities. It's very difficult to be great at wholesale, D2C, events, like all of the things at the same time from a channel perspective. I don't know if that's your experience.
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, and I think you can almost get distracted by, especially like you said, I think niching down when you're a small business, chasing after so many rainbows, it's only so much time. And I think, like you said, the performance in the ethics comes from the founders. If we're distracted, like, go here, no, go there.
Exactly.
Oh no, let's sell that. And it just gets distracting for everyone, I think.
It does. And it's hard to really get the team focused in one direction, which is the big lesson that I learned probably over the last sort of 18 months. And so we've entered this year with like a ridiculously clear strategy. And the team is so focused. And as a result, we've had like our best 2 months.
Amazing. Congrats.
Feeling, the difference of that. Plus we're profitable. So,
well, and going into the recession now in this period we're in, that's where those trendy businesses that were raising money just to raise money, it all ends, unfortunately.
Exactly. It's come
profitability becomes number one, which is best place to be in.
Also, you can sleep at night, man. It's like, you know what I mean? Like,
you're not waking up. No. Can you be investor C today?
Yeah, exactly. Like, that pressure is phenomenal. Yeah. I'm not saying that we don't need to raise further cash to help grow, but doing it from a place of profitability and like...
and a clear strategy, isn't it, of when you need to do it.
Completely different. Yeah.
No, it sounds really interesting. So what's your next stages for your business now? Because you're obviously more than 2 products now. You're thinking of diversifying. What's your vision with that? I guess it all comes back to the holistic view of, really encompassing recovery for that athlete. But what's next for you guys?
Yeah, a couple of things. Firstly, expanding the product range, as you've spoken about. Our whole brand is about recovery for performance. So we create recovery products that make you a better athlete. Mm-hmm. The percussive guns have been amazing. We've launched into compression, as you've talked about, which is really having a moment right now. I think as the kind of everyday athlete gets more educated about their recovery and are waking more to that, they're getting lots of data from Oura Rings and Whoop apps. Yeah. Then they're looking for the tools to help them accelerate their recovery. So we've launched the compression boots. We're launching ice baths and CBD balm this month. And then we're launching recovery supplements in about 2 months' time. Mm-hmm. And further than expanding the product range, we're looking at the SaaS side of the business in terms of how can we sort of be a physio in the pocket? So how can we give that educational element on an app alongside our products?
And where's all these ideas coming from? Because they're all, I guess MPD in some specs is complicated. Obviously the product stuff you get, but SaaS apps, community for that. Is that all you driving this idea? Where did you get that vision from, I guess?
So we work with a couple of amazing physiotherapists, elite level physiotherapists and nutritionists who are advisors to the business. And they're very honed into what are the needs of athletes, really. Mm-hmm. And if our vision is to be the home of sports recovery and to be the business and brand that you return to as your recovery partner, in the same way that if you wear Nike for your sports apparel, you go back to them for your trainers and your shorts and your top and all elements of that. That's kind of what we want to be from a recovery perspective. So we, A, listen to the experts who advise us. B, like I said, we are customers. So Joe's just retired from rugby and he's sorting out his body and he's working on getting into cycling. So he's discovering a whole new range of challenges that we're trying to solve, me training for an Ironman. And then lastly, like I said, we're out speaking to customers every single weekend.
Yeah.
So the most common thing that we hear at the moment is, I've got X, Y, and Z issue. I'm suffering with ITB syndrome or Achilles tendonitis or whatever. Like, I've been to see the physio once, but they gave me these exercises, but I lost the piece of paper and I've forgotten what the exercises were. Or I did them for one day, but I just couldn't remember how she said to do them. And so the problem's not really going away. And I actually think that space hasn't been disrupted in the way that other spaces have. And it connects in terms of our customer journey. It just completely
it's perfect with the products and everything,
what
isn't
we're
it?
doing. Yeah. So, and not only that, they get the products in their hand and they're like amazing. Currently, you get an email with educational videos, but how can we make that process more seamless for our customers when they got our products in their hand? How can they get a better understanding of how they should be using them when they got a specific product, a problem or issue? So really based off, yes, the experts, but also we're really close to our customers and we're out talking to them all the time. So we're building ideas off the back of them, really.
And it comes to your events situation again, in the way you know your customer and your vision, it all ties in to the point you know what they want almost, which is fundamental and key.
Yeah, and it's also why, to your point of like, a lot of D2C brands don't really get out there. Mm-hmm. For us, like getting face to face and having those conversations has been fundamental to like everything we've done as a brand, basically.
Yeah.
So.
No, it's exciting. Well, the podcast, obviously, Fuel for Founders, is about giving people motivation to leave their 9 to 5, like you exactly have. And, we don't get a lot of women in business. And like you said, you're a young black woman entering the business space. It's, that's a niche concept in itself, and there's more people want to do that. What's your advice to young girls who are in a job, but they've got this entrepreneurial ambition? They want to start something, they can see a gap in the market. What would your advice be to those people?
Start. It blows my mind the amount of people who have an idea and give themselves 50,000 excuses why they shouldn't launch.
Yeah.
I meet them all the time. Like, I meet women with these sick business ideas and they're like, oh, but, I haven't created enough different products yet, or, oh, but, I've got work, or, oh, but, like, limiting beliefs is basically what they're doing, creating limiting beliefs in their mind. And I'm like, you don't have to quit your job. Like, you don't have to change a thing. Just like put a product out there, start selling it to your friends and family and see what they say. Particularly if it's a product-based business, right? Like, just start. Like, we literally went and sold a B&Q drill with a stall end on it. Do you know what I mean?
I need to see a photo.
Yeah, I'll send you one. Yeah, but like, there's no reason why you can't just start. Like, get going. Some of the most wicked brands, like, a lot of people look up to Gymshark. Like, it was on his mum's sewing machine, like in his parents' garage, like. Don't let anything be an excuse. Like, I literally launched the business whilst I was having a baby, basically, at the same time. And what's bigger excuse than that, to not do it? But you just got to crack on. Like, time's running out. Like, get going. Just get started.
Yeah, and I think you can overthink it. Like, things can seem a bigger deal than they are. You launch a website, drop ship some stuff. If it doesn't work, just close it, yeah.
Yeah, can it? Like, it's no big deal. Especially, like, that's why I'm a big advocate for the side hustle thing at the beginning. Because I think, like, everything is so much less risky if you're still getting a salary. Like,
yes.
Just give it a go.
Just give it a go, yeah.
Why not? What's the worst that can happen? And I wish people would stop making excuses in their mind. And really what it is it's self-doubt. It's essentially what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And I see it most of all in women. And they, hold themselves back. And I think if women had more self-belief and more confidence in these amazing ideas that they've got, I think that's what we should be advocating more for.
What's your, it's inspiring to hear you say that. And I think a lot of people to take that on board. But what's your sort of little anecdotes every day that you do? Because obviously you're a confident person and you've gone and done these. Do you tell yourselves little things every day, or is it just a build up of evidence over time that you can do these little things that build to big things? Because it's all momentum at the end of the day. But
like I've nearly quit because of self-doubt so many times, and I expect it will happen another couple of times this year. Like I struggle, I'm giving it the big one in this conversation about how people should just start.
Yeah.
But actually almost I've found starting was the easy part. Like making this thing a success, the intense amount of sacrifice and the amount of, you'll know this, you started a business, you literally have no idea what you're doing. Like 99% of the time, you nearly went out of cash loads of times. We just had a massive order come in from our manufacturers. They got lost. Like hundreds of products got lost. And I was like, I don't know if we can come back from that. Like no one could find the products, and things like that's like weekly occurrences. Like things go wrong like that every week where you're like, I don't know if we can come back from this.
Yeah.
And you're constantly like, am I the right person to do this? Have I made the right decision? Well, I am anyway.
No, I totally agree with you. The amount of emails we get, I'm like, this is it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going.
I'm done.
Yeah, I'm done.
Relentless self-doubt for me. And your point is a really interesting one, which is I have had to learn over the past couple of years to actively work on self-belief, like a muscle. Like I train every day.
Yeah.
I work on my self-belief every day. One of the reasons I've committed to training every day, I've stopped drinking. So I've created some habits in my life that have really helped with my self-belief and some routines and some rules. And training for me is a really big part of that. When I'm exercising and I feel strong and I take that time out, I use that time to tell myself positive things and positive mantras. And I have to work on it all the time. And then sometimes I'm just like, I call up someone like my dad, a hype man, or we've got a really cool advisor, Dan Williams, who built Wit. And sometimes I'm like, I need a pep talk. I just need a pep talk. I just need you to tell me that I can do this. So yeah, a combination of, being disciplined about my health and fitness, taking time to do positive self-talk, pep talk from others, little things as well, like a folder. I've got a folder on my phone which is like hype yourself, and it's just all the cool shit that we've done. And I just go through the pictures and I'm like, we've done some cool stuff. We can keep going. So, yeah.
No, it's amazing. I've heard so many stories of this. I got a founder friend of mine, Jordan, who started My Energy, a big charging business. She's got this hype song that she goes into. Honestly, if I can find it, Jordan, I'm putting the link to it, because this is hype song. She goes in like a diva into these meetings, but it just gives her that confidence to go and do it.
You've got to. And I think not enough people work on their self-belief. They don't work on it. They expect it to just be there. It doesn't come to anybody. No,
and I think you said it as founders, there's so many days where we think it's going to end. And I think you've got to build that resilience somehow, whether it's an ice bath or training or diet or not drinking, whatever it is for you is really important.
Yeah, you've got to work on it though. That's for sure.
No, well, thank you for coming on. I think it was really insightful. Great to hear your journey. I'm excited to see some of your products, but I wish you all the best. And where can people find your stuff? It's MyoMaster.com.
MyoMaster.com.
Yeah.
You can find all of our products. They'll change your life. They'll change your performance. So happy shopping.
Yeah, lovely. I'll drop a link in the comment, but hope you enjoyed that episode. That was a great conversation with Lottie. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, join for more. I'm sure there's going to be plenty more exciting guests.